Today is July 24th, 2013, 4 p.m., and we're sitting with Ms. Faye Mack. So if you don't mind just starting with your family origin and I guess how they came to Craig and whatnot.
Okay, well, my great-grandparents came from Colorado Springs. My great-grandfather and his brother came from Colorado Springs to some land below Sunbeam, Colorado, in 1884. And they took up ground down there, each of them a portion of ground. It wasn't called homestead then. It was, I'm not a good one to interview because I can't remember words or names.
Oh, that's fine.
Anyway, they took up ground, some on one side of the Yampa River and some on the other.
Okay.
It was called the Bear River in those days.
Oh, right.
And my great uncle did a lot of survey work, that kind of thing. So they built a water wheel into the river so they could take water out to irrigate their crops on one side of the river and raise crops. And then their main business was raising horses and cattle.
What year was that they came?
About 1884, I think. It was the mid-'80s anyway. Both of my grandparents on both sides of my family came over about that period, and I forget which ones which, but that was my mother's side of the family. And then my father's side of the family came from Golden, Colorado. They had a flour mill in Golden, and that was would have been my great-grandfather. He had several trips back and forth from Rock Island, Illinois, to Golden, freighting things back and forth, and then he set up this flour mill, and they ran it for a number of years. In fact, in Golden, there's I don't know whether it's left, the mill is still there, but there's pictures of it in their museum and all where they have the flour mill. Then my grandfather was there. This was Jonas Barber that first came out, and then his son, Oscar Fritzland, was my great-grandfather, and he came to Maybell, he and his family. And that was about the same time in the 1880s, mid-'80s. And they raised horses, basically. And it was just east of where the town of Maybell is now, about maybe a quarter of a mile. Okay, where do we go from there?
Well, if you'd like to take us up through when you were born.
Okay. My parents lived in Maybell, and there was no doctor in Maybell, and so came to Craig, and I was born at a friend's home here in Craig, and of course then went back.
Was that a midwife's home, or was there was just a friend's house?
No, the doctor came there, but it was just a friend's house.
Okay. And then your family and you went back to Maybell.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you live in Maybell?
Well, we lived there till I was a freshman in high school in 1949.
Oh, okay.
My mother and dad moved to Craig then.
What was it like growing up there?
That's all I knew, so it was normal, I guess.
Okay. How many kids were in your class? Do you recall?
No, I started the first grade in 1941, and there was 4 grades. There was 3 schoolhouses, and 4 grades in the first one, and I think 3 grades in the next one, and then they had what they called high school in the third one at that time. That was for about 4 years.
Okay.
And I went to school there through the 4th grade, and then they decided there was enough kids in the Sunbeam School District to open a school down there again. And my parents lived on a ranch 3 miles west of Maybell, and I happened to be in that school district, so we went to that. My brother and I had a younger brother who was 3 years younger, and we went to Sunbeam for 2 years.
How far away was that?
It was farther than coming to Maybell. Let's see, it's 12 miles from Maybell to Sunbeam, and we were 3 miles below Maybell, so it'd been 9 miles.
Okay.
So we went there in the 5th and 6th grade. Then came back to Maybell for the 7th and 8th grade. And by that time, they'd gone to just 2 class buildings. They turned the primary schoolhouse into a teacherage for the teacher to live in, and no high school there anymore. So I went to what was the old high school. They had the middle school was the primary building then, and then 7th and 8th grade was in the old high school building. Buildings were just alike. They were white platform buildings with a porch you could hang your outdoor clothes in, your coats and overshoes and water bucket and so forth.
So everyone at that point had to go to the high school here?
In Craig, yeah. They had a bus.
They did have a bus. You didn't have to provide your own transportation.
The bus started probably I don't know what year, because I was in Sunbeam, but between my 5th grade and 7th grade, somehow they start. It probably is when they closed the Sunbeam School again, and that's a lie. They didn't close the Sunbeam School. My folks sold the ranch and moved into Maybell. So that put me back in the Maybell School District. How confusing.
That's all right. But you did have to then come here for high school. And what was Craig like when you first...
Well, I thought it was pretty scary. I didn't like to cross the street by myself. Maybell, have you been to Maybell? It's not very big. And we moved in to Craig when I was a freshman, probably about December, so it was half the year.
Oh, the whole family moved.
Yeah. I rode the bus from September through December, and then we moved into town. And that was hard because I didn't know anybody in Craig, and my friends were riding the bus.
Why did your family move? Because of school?
Job. My father, after he sold the ranch, they took over the filling station in Maybell, and that wasn't exactly what he wanted to do. He was a road builder by heart, and he went back to work for the county road department. So he moved into Craig, where he could work for them easier.
Now, at that point, only the major highways were paved. Right. So did he work on upkeep or?
Well, they built roads too, but it was just dirt and gravel.
I see.
They didn't oil them at that time. But they had roads were still just pretty narrow and primitive. So the county road department did a lot of road building with motor graders and caterpillars, and just built the road up. And where they could, they gravelled.
Is that where he worked? Okay. What was the high school like?
It was a brand new school that had been built. It was up where the middle school is now. And I got there the first year that it was open. And It was very nice. We had a gym and a band room and an auditorium and all the fancy things we didn't have at Maybell. It's scary.
A lot more people.
Yeah. I have no idea how many were in school then, but there was only 49 in my class when I graduated, so it still wasn't very big then.
What year did you graduate?
53.
53. Okay.
53.
Okay. What would you do for fun after school?
I can't remember doing much of anything other than school things.
Okay.
After I got a little older, I babysat a lot for different people, and I joined the Rainbow Girls, and that was about my only activity outside of school.
What are the Rainbow Girls?
They were the Girls Association with Eastern Star and Masons.
What was that like?
It was nice. It was fun. I learned things I wouldn't have otherwise. They taught us how to be a lady, I guess.
Okay. Did you continue that throughout high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you ever drag Maine? A lot of people have fond memories, it seems, of dragging Maine.
Well, didn't even get my driver's license till I was 17. I was such a coward about the big city. No, I was with the what do I want to say? I wasn't with the wild group. I do remember once driving and stopping at a red light and stopping at a green light and driving through a red one. Fortunately, didn't get caught. But we had one stoplight, and one right down here.
Right. What did this area look like?
Well, this was our main street, and that was about all Craig was, just the 4 ways here that went to Main Street. The building across the way was the Safeway store.
Right.
And, of course, this was the Armory. And the main bank was down on the corner, the big brick building. I remember the brick building on the other side of the street, and on the east side was J.C. Penney. And that was not J.C. Penney yet. Then they had a building on this side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. Dan can tell you those.
Yeah. Did you ever attend any of the events in this building, in the Armory?
My first date with my husband was in this building. It was a dance after a rodeo. He'd gotten bucked off and kind of bunged up, so we didn't dance one dance. We sat upstairs in the balcony and watched people dance. It was very exciting.
What were those dances like?
Oh, it was fun. I wish we still had dances like that. Had music you could dance to, and you changed partners. You didn't dance just with one person. Had a lot of square dances. It was legal to anybody call a square dance. It was fun. It was, I guess, other than theater, that was our main entertainment in those days.
Okay. This is probably an odd question. I'm just asking. Do you remember any fights? We've heard that there were a lot of fights at these dances.
I'm sure there were, but most of the fights happened outside.
Okay.
Both here in Maybell, there was a lot of dances at Maybell, but I never saw one that, like I say, they were always outside.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
What did you pursue after high school or decided to?
Well, I intended to go to college, and I did go to Mesa. I had a scholarship to Mesa, and I went for a quarter and a half, and I just had to just pay my tuition. And my folks didn't have much, of course, and I cleaned the dorm, swept the dorm for my spending money. But then in December, my dad had to change jobs, and there was no money coming from home anymore, and I was terribly homesick. And they tried to get me to stay. I have to brag a little. I was on the dean's list. I did a good job. And they tried to get me to stay. They'd find work for me. Yeah. But I was so homesick. I really didn't want to stay. And my aunt worked in the telephone office as a service representative. And she was quitting, and I was offered the job. So I came home and went to work. And of course, never went back.
So you worked with a telephone company?
I worked for him for a year and a half.
What was that like?
It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was the service representative. We wrote orders for new phones, and in those days we had sheep shearers come through in the springtime from South Texas, and they sheared sheep all the way up into Canada and then back down. So in the spring, they didn't have cell phones and all that. They'd come in and we'd place a phone call for them to back home.
Right.
And that was interesting. And then the man that was in charge of the sheep shearers would come up here and buy a car, a new Cadillac every year from one of the car dealers. And so we expected to see them every spring. It was kind of fun. And people that didn't have a phone, we didn't have country phones then either, in town, but not, they maybe had a few phones in Maybell, but not, it was long distance and there weren't very many. So a lot of people would come in and place their phone calls in our office. We had 2 phone booths that they'd go in and place their calls.
How busy would it get?
Oh, never anything you couldn't handle. There was 2 of us in the office, and it was okay. It might have been busier for the operators. They were in a building over here, right beside the museum. And I never got in on that part at all.
Did you ever make any really long phone calls?
No, other than just placed them for the Mexicans is all I can remember, and I don't really remember even where they went.
Okay.
Probably, they might have some of them gone to Mexico, probably most of them to just southern United States.
Okay. And what did you do after the phone company?
I got married, and I worked in a cafe for a while, and then we moved to Arizona for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
And then came back.
Had Craig changed at all?
We weren't going that long.
Oh, okay. Why'd you decide to come back?
Let's see, what was the reason that time? My husband got called to the service. It was when the Korean War was on.
Okay, so the early 50s.
And it turned out that we didn't have to. He'd gotten bucked off and hurt a knee, and they didn't take him anyway. So they deferred him for a year, and we decided to stay here because it's quite a job to move from Arizona back up here, and my folks were here, and I didn't want to stay in Arizona by myself. In the meantime, we had a little boy, so we stayed here then for several years.
For several years.
My husband worked for the road department.
Okay. Did your son attend school here in Craig?
Well, we did a lot of moving around for about 8 years. We were, let's see, that was 56. We came back here and stayed till 1960. We moved back to Arizona and stayed a couple of years and came back. And by that time, our oldest little boy was kindergarten age.
Oh, okay.
He started here in Craig. Then we moved to a ranch down by Sunbeam and worked down there. And he went to Maybell school on the bus. And our younger boy was kindergarten age, but they didn't have kindergarten in Maybell, so he just stayed home and helped us.
Right.
And we were there a couple of years. Then we moved back to Arizona for a short period. Very short. My husband got bucked off and got a concussion, and he was not doing very well, so we came back up here. Goodness gracious. We went up on the border of Colorado and Wyoming and worked for a couple of years on a ranch. I'm not sure I'm getting this all in line, but anyway. We moved around a lot for 8 years, and then I think when the boys were in the 4th and 5th grades, we moved back to Craig, and we've been here ever since.
So permanent. And in all that moving around, what did you notice about Craig that was changing in all that time?
I don't remember that it changed all that much in those years.
Okay.
We moved back in '68, and most of the change, the booms and the so forth, happened after that.
Had the one-way street been put in yet?
No.
Okay.
No. So it was pretty much the same thing. And every other house was for sale in Craig, and you could buy one for 3% interest. I remember that.
In '68.
But we didn't intend to stay. We were going to get the kids through school and go back to the ranch, right? Wrong. So our boys both graduated from high school here, too.
Oh, okay. And what did you think of the schooling system for them?
Well, I worked for the school, so...
What did you do?
Well, I started out as an AV aide and ended up as secretary to the principal.
Okay. What type of changes did you see in the school over the years?
A lot of changes. They got busier and busier, and then they decided to build the new school. So the last year or so, was there a lot of to do about the new school and what it was going to be like and what they needed, that kind of thing.
Okay. What happened in Craig after the boom, or during the boom?
Lots and lots of people moved in, and the thing I remember most about it, I guess since I worked at the high school, was the kids that came in as their parents moved here for the work. The kids just became a part of things and acted like they'd been here forever, and they just fit in like a glove.
Right.
And the ones that kind of came in with a chip on their shoulder didn't get along so well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether that's typical of, I suppose, people in all areas, but a lot of new kids, and the school grew like crazy. That's one reason they needed the new school.
Right. Do you ever remember a news team coming to report on the school?
Not per se, but I suppose we did have to.
Okay. So the schools were crowded, and I'm assuming did the town get crowded as well then?
Yeah, it was hard to find a place to live. A lot of new building and no place to rent. Most all of the rental properties. Well, the mall went in. That area was all built up. It used to be a hayfield.
Oh.
And the apartments behind there were all new at that time in the 70s. In fact, it was still pretty much the main drag here till now. Everything started building up.
Okay.
Is there anything else you remember about the boom? I know we heard it was kind of rowdy at that time.
You know, we weren't people that took in the nightlife, so I don't know anything about that, but I assume it was. You heard a lot of things.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of very interesting stories about people coming in and coming out, and different perspectives on the boom. From the school aspect, it's interesting to see the influx of children.
It just, I don't know, it seemed pretty normal. It happened so gradually, and yet it wasn't gradual either,
right.
but started small and then just kept building and building.
What was it like raising a family here?
Well, we didn't have any difficulty at all. Of course, I had the best of all worlds. When you work in the school, you know what your kids are doing
Right.
and what they are interested in, and so it wasn't a problem at all.
Right. Okay. What would you do for recreation? Just you and the family to
We camped and fished and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Having boys, that was easy to do.
Two boys?
Where would you go for camping and fishing?
Oh, just it depends on the time of year. You went to the mountains when it was hot, and when it was cooler, you went to lower country. We had a lot of friends down around in the Browns Park area and Douglas Mountain, and so we went down there a lot. People that owned ranches, and we knew them quite well. So.
Cool, glory to the Lord. That's interesting. Did you hunt? Your family hunt?
Always, every fall. That was how we fed our family.
Oh. How did that change over the years? Hunting.
We outgrew it, I think.
Oh, okay.
My boys still hunt, but we didn't need the meat, and so my husband and I don't hunt anymore. Well, I never did hunt except to go long.
So are your boys still here in Craig?
No, one lives in Meeker and one lives in Du Bois, Wyoming.
Not too far, but
Pardon?
they're not too far then, right?
No,
Yeah.
too far, but not. The one in Meeker works for Caldwell Coal Company.
Oh, right. Okay. Just kind of to sum up, how do you feel about Craig today and the current state of, I don't want to say politics or anything, but the community, how the community is today, how you've seen it develop?
You know, I have no complaint. It's home.
Okay.
I have no desire to go anywhere else.
Okay. Any other closing remarks?
I don't think so. I think I've confused you pretty well.
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you very much.